Hello guys, this is Destroyer12101, the Amazing Mr. X, and I'm here with my latest computer build. I was just finishing up some really interesting benchmarks I just wanted to share with you guys related to Physx. I have in here, let's see if I can get a nice zoom in on that. I don't think you could see that. That is an EVGA 560 Ti 448 core classified Ultra. That is my previous graphics card, and it's just sitting in there for the purposes of Physx. And above it, of course, is a GTX 680. I'm pretty sure you could definitely see that because I could see that on my screen. But anyway, I wanted to test how different Physx configurations work in comparison to one another on a card that would really befit pairing with a 680. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense to use a high-end card with a low-end card for Physx. You definitely want something with a lot of compute power associated with it, so I definitely wanted to see how this sort of setup would work. Specifically as relates with my motherboard between multiple ×16 and ×8 configurations. So the top of this is a graphics card is running at ×16. I'm just going to pull up GPU-Z to show you that really quick. Alright, so if I could get this to work really nicely, did it really just clock down the ×16 1.1? Okay, hold on. This is the part where you have to run the render test. Okay. So running render test, you can see it's running a PCIe 3.0 ×16 up at the top. This is off of a PLX chip. This is the G1 Sniper 3, so it is ×16 with PLX on the top and ×8 with PLX on the bottom. And we could see in this current configuration I have set up here that our 560 Ti 448 core, which you see we have GF110 and we have 448 unified shaders, and that is running at ×8, even though you can't use the render test to make this clock back up. So you'll just believe me that this is actually running at ×8 2.0 for the sake of testing. And for the 16 times PCIe slot testing, it was running at PCIe 16 times 2.0. And so we're just going to close this for right now, and we're just going to jump right in. Our first benchmark here, these are all Metro 2033 benchmarks. This is all Metro 2033 bench, running on DirectX 11, 1680 by 1050, very high, 4 times MSAA, 16 times AF. No depth of field because it looks terrible, and the front line with 3 runs in Physx. And you can see here is that with the 560 Ti running at ×16 2.0 as a dedicated Physx card, we got a average frame rate of 6167 and a minimum frame rate of 1350. You can ignore the maximums. There's one particular frame on this chart which is very easy to render, and that is always true of Metro Bench. So the maximum frame rates unfortunately aren't really that important here because Metro really likes to screw around with that one extra frame. But and that's never really consistent either, so we're just gonna swap over. This is running from ×16 to ×8. That 560 Ti still dedicated in Physx, shot all the way down to 54.67. So again, we went from 6167 to 5467, and from 1350 all the way down to 1333. Let's get a little bit more of a zoom just in case you need to see that a little better. So moving from ×16 to ×8 with PCIe 2.0 and a dedicated Physx card really does give you quite a downturn on those frame rates. Again, the maximum frame rate for this benchmark really doesn't matter that much, so you know, don't really take that into too much consideration, seeing that drop from 256 to 192 is not really what you think it is. Now we're going to drop over. I did another test. This was, again, times 16 to times 8. And now going over, we're going to look at just the 680 running its own Physx while doing the test all itself. Again, these are the average results of 3 runs of MetroBent. We are running at 52.33 for the average and a minimum of 13.05, so the minimums do go down quite an interesting amount between times 8 dedicated 560 Ti 448 and just having the 680 do it on its own. So really, what I'm getting between this is because the drop here is about 2 FPS on the average and not much on the minimums. So my guesswork here is that really what you're dealing with is either you run this at times 16 where you have these scores which are really quite impressive, or you just don't really want to run a dedicated Physx because the frame rate drop between these is pretty significant, especially in those averages. And the smoothness between these is noticeable to the people who really care about the smoothness of their graphics. One last test for comparison's sake. Again, this right here is just a 680 by itself with no dedicated Physx. And now we're going to jump over, and these are the results for just the CPU doing the Physx on its own. And really, this minimum frame rate is interesting because even though the minimum frame rate is higher, we are going to go ahead and look at this graph. You see, this is the graph for CPU Physx on its own, and here's the graph for the 680. You can see that there's actually quite a lot more dip right here and more spikeage. The spikes even out that that average down here so that it tends to look a lot better. But what this really turns into in the benchmark itself is a particularly uneven frame rate where you move from 52 to 50 and you might as well have dropped all the way down to a 550 Ti for running this game at these settings. So, you know, overall, I was doing this because I really wanted to see if you get like this particular motherboard, PLX chips, you tend to run all of these in times 8 when you have, say, 2-way or 3-way SLI. And the big question is it worth it to get Physx involved in this? Not really. If you're not going to run more than just a single dedicated card, Physx isn't really going to help you that much. And that's really what this test is really showing. If you have 2-way SLI, this one is really not going to be doing that much for you in a Physx-enabled game. And I know some people might complain that, you know, Metro 2033 is not great for Physx, and that's not true. Metro 2033 has quite a lot of Physx effects. They're very understated. They're not in your face like, say, Borderlands 2, but they are there. You're not really going to see them in this particular game, like, visually, but they do render, so, you know... Yeah, it's good for testing because it's a stressful game. Honestly, try to run the second Physx cards all the time in times 16 if you can get away with it. You're definitely not going to get as much of a benefit at all moving from times 16 to times 8 with PCIe 2.0 and these really beefy Physx cards. That said, this is a particularly good graphics card. It's a really high level Fermi, and I don't know if you saw this when GPU-Z was running, but it is significantly overclocked. I'll just bring this back up. You can see that this particular card is running at 930 megahertz with 1050 on the shader, oh no, 1050 on the memory and 1860 on the shader. And right now it says Physx is off because I just finished running the CPU test. But, you know, in general, you're not really going to want to run this in x8. You're not going to want to run this when you're running SLI. Physx is really finicky about compute performance. It really prefers compute over everything else. It is a compute performance sort of thing. You're gonna want to run a really high-end graphics card like this, and even then, it's really not worth it too much. I mean, especially because the difference between, again, the dedicated Physx 680 with the dedicated Physx 560 Ti at times 16 speed, you're getting 6167. The drop between that and not having Physx on dedicated and just having the 680 handle it is really, it's really not that much. 52.33 does look like quite a significant loss compared to 61, and it is 9 FPS. But overall, it's only going to be a very small amount of smoothness difference in most areas. You're not really going to see the significant difference that you would really care about if you spent the money instead on SLI. So, just to wrap this up, I really do think that if you have the option of, buying an extra Physx card or keeping your card for Physx, if you're just running the one GPU and you want to have like another times 16 slot populated with your old graphics card, that's fine. But you're really not going to get anything out of buying this separately on its own that you wouldn't have gotten. You would have gotten better results if you just bought a second video card. So I hope this helps some people out there. I am going to make a video about this rig eventually. I don't know. Every time that I make one of these videos, I don't know whether I'm going to end up posting it, and I always end up commenting that I'm going to make a video about this rig. It's ongoing. We'll definitely see what happens. It might already be up by the time this comes out. But this is Destroyer1201, the amazing Mr. X, signing off. See you guys next time. Hey guys, really quick, I forgot to say this in the video, but this is running an i7 3770K at an overclock of 4.6. That's what all these tests were done in, with 2400 megahertz DDR3, 8 gigs of it, all G.skill. And for these tests, these were the settings used for the graphics card. We have the 680 is actually a 4GB 680 running at 3.0 times 16, and then of course those overclocks right there. Then the 560 Ti, which is of course the 448 core model. Right now this is plugged back into the times 16 slot on the board, and those are the clocks at which it is currently running. Should be easy enough for you guys to see. We also have on the system the Intel HD Graphics 4000 on the actual 3770K, which are running pretty much at stock, but with the increased memory speed from the memory overclock. And that is not running in Virtue MVP. Virtue MVP is off. And we ran all of these tests under these settings, so just wanted to make sure that you guys knew what was going on. I knew somebody was eventually going to ask what the CPU was, something like that, and I was like, I forgot to put it in the video, so right here, tack it on the end. Alright, see you guys around. Hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to rate, comment, subscribe, and sacrifice your unborn third son to whatever god of your choosing. Yep.